This is Special Agent Jody Shimonik with the Oregon Department of Justice. It is June 1st, 2016 at 8:36 a.m. and I am on the phone with Mayor Charlie Hales. Mayor, if you could just state your name for us.
Charlie Hales, Mayor of the City of Portland.
And I'm calling you in regards to the investigation of Police Chief Lawrence or Larry ODea. This is our case number CJD 006816. And Mary, I told you that we're recording this conversation.
Yes.
And you're okay with that?
Yes, I am.
And so you had learned several weeks ago from Chief ODea that he had been involved in an accidental shooting incident over in Harney County. Do you recall when he first told you about that incident?
Yes, I was actually en route from Oslo to Portland over the weekend, so it was one of those sort of endless itineraries that you're not quite sure what time it is back at home. But anyway, most of that weekend I was flying back from a trip with the Secretary of Transportation to Oslo, and so I think I arrived home, I think in the middle of the night on Sunday. At any rate, he called me. He knew when I was gone, and he called me. I believe it was that early that Monday morning, the morning following. So he called me and informed me that this had happened. The account he gave was that he was out shooting with friends in Harney County. That there was a discharge of a gun, and his friend was wounded. It was not clear, as he recounted it at the time that this happened, exactly which gun had fired and how. There had been some thought at the scene that the gun that had discharged might have been the victim's gun as he was holstering it. But they had not long after figured out that was not the case, and that they had figured out that it was Larry's gun that had discharged. The concentration at the scene, of course, as he recounted this was to get his friend to medical attention, which they did, and that his friend was wounded, but it was not, life-threatening, and that he was going to recover. That in terms of procedure, he told me that an investigation was being launched by Harney County sheriffs, as would be the case in any such incident, and that Larry, had also informed Captain Rodriguez, who's the head of our internal affairs department within the Bureau, so that the police bureau could conduct the customary investigation for internal affairs purposes as well, and that I would, of course, be informed, as I would in any case, of the results of that investigation. So much of the phone call, so those were the facts that he communicated to me then. Much of the conversation, or at least a significant portion of the conversation, was more on a boss to employee level in this sense, in that he was clearly distraught. Larry is a very conscientious, decent guy, and he was clearly distraught, significantly distraught over having hurt his friend, and was. Again, this was a phone conversation, but there were certainly tears in his voice if there weren't in his eyes. And
right.
I was reassuring him because, again, I hired this guy as police chief, and he's a very effective police chief and a very principled person. And I was reassuring him that bad things do happen to good people, and that this was terrible, and that he should not beat himself up too much over this, but obviously that, one, on an official level it'll get investigated, and two, on a personal level, he just needed to take care of his friend and take care of himself. I had an incident occurred years ago when my daughter got injured on a backpacking trip, that I made a mistake in navigation and put her in harm's way, and so I told him that story, and that eventually again, at least half of the conversation, if not more than half, was on that kind of personal level. And that I urged him to just take some time. I did not place him on leave or any such administrative action at that point because, again, this was an accident, as he had communicated to me. It was being properly investigated, because officers are involved in off-duty accidents, whether they're car crashes or anything else, from time to time. And so it was being properly investigated, and I knew that process would take place. I didn't make any public announcement about this at the time because I knew a proper investigation was underway, and I have a fairly old-fashioned belief that there ought to be investigation, facts, conclusions, and decisions in that order. Of course, what ultimately later happened is the news media found out about this incident and started publishing some of the facts, or at least their versions thereof, and quite a few conclusions without you or anyone else completing the investigation, and that's unfortunate, but that doesn't mean that the official process needs to change.
Right. And so you'd never contacted anyone at the sheriff's office after?
No, I didn't, and I wouldn't in any other case either. If there was a proper investigation underway, in this case, obviously, I wouldn't have been satisfied with the police bureau investigating itself, much less investigating its boss. But since my chief had informed me that the Harney County Sheriff's Office had responded to the incident and that they were conducting an investigation, I had no reason to doubt that was the truth, and it was not. It was the truth, and therefore I didn't feel like I needed to conduct an investigation.
Okay.
Until such time as the official investigations are completed. Now, at that point, again, as a personnel matter, I'll determine whether or not the results of those investigations are sufficient for me to make a decision as an employer, or whether I need to do more. But it's customary in this kind of process, in human resources as well as with the police bureau, to have an investigation conducted and then see if further review or fact-finding is needed by the city before some action is taken, particularly when it's an at-will employee like this.
Right. And you've kind of already answered this, but there was no plan by you or the city to try to keep this quiet or not disclose it to internal affairs or the independent police review. It was just
no, quite the contrary. Yeah, he had already contacted internal affairs, and of course, I've been around public life long enough to know that nothing is kept quiet.
Right.
And that at some point it would be necessary for me to make some decision public, and that the full details of this incident would need to be disclosed to the public. But that should happen, again, in my somewhat old-fashioned belief, that should happen after the investigation rather than before.
Oh, I think I don't think you're that old-fashioned. I would believe that too, but then again, I'm old-fashioned because I've been doing this for 20 years. So, I can say that our investigation was definitely hampered after Sheriff Ward started releasing stuff. It created difficulty for us being able to contact witnesses, and I know then the press really started hounding our witnesses and the victim too. He couldn't go home one evening because he came down a street and there were 3 or 4 news vans outside and a bunch of cars and.
Larry's had the same thing with news crews rolling up his driveway, and so that's been pretty unhelpful. Yeah, it has not been easy, and we're trying to wrap this up quickly because, definitely the public's perception of what happened varies vastly differently than what I think really happened, and the media, of course, is, just grabbed it and ran with it, and it's, unfortunately became really twisted and turned. And that's the new world order with the news media ever since a guy named Kitzhaber was governor.
Do you know did Chief ODea ever inform you whether or not he let the sheriff's office know he was the chief of police?
I'm trying to think that through. I don't think he said anything in that first call about whether he had disclosed or not disclosed that he was chief of police. or that he was a police officer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe. I know there's been a lot of speculation about that. And then actually once that speculation occurred, I thought about it some more in terms of what he should have done, and actually I think it was appropriate that he not disclose that. It seems to me a damned if you do, damned if you don't
I
situation.
totally agree. We have this part, we're kind of split down the middle in our division. Half of us are cops and half of us are attorneys, and the cop side, says, no, I wouldn't have said anything because I don't want to get preferential treatment. But then the attorneys were like, well, don't you think it's your obligation to say that you're a police officer and that you understand the investigation, or that's why you have, personal knowledge about guns and, gun safety, but I totally understand where the chief was coming from, especially in this day and age, and being from the Bureau, where he didn't say, hey, I'm, Police Chief Larry O'Dea, and glad to meet you,
it seems like, do you know who I am? That seems like that would again, it's a bad situation either way, but it seems like that would be the worst of two bad choices.
Yeah. So, is there anything else that you think is important for us to know, or the prosecutors that are reviewing this case?
I had a subsequent conversation with Chief O'Dea in which, after there was a sheriff's report published by the Oregonian that said that the detective at the scene determined that there was alcohol on everyone's breath, Chief O'Dea called me to say, you get the full investigation when you get it, but I just want you to know that I was not drinking, and that is erroneous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had told us that, and then pretty much everyone in the group said, that there wasn't any heavy drinking going on, that, maybe you guys had a beer or two at lunch and during the day, and some people described Chief O'Dea as a teetotaler. So, I think, there's some concerns about that statement. Of course, that turned out to be, something great for the media to have, drunk cops shooting guns and shoot friend, in the back. And, but no, I don't think, anyone was under the influence of alcohol, to a point where it was creating a safety issue or caused this accident to happen. I think it was, just purely an accident.
Right. I don't believe there was any indication that either designated drivers were assigned or that the sheriff's deputies admonished anyone not to drive a motor vehicle, and obviously they didn't walk to this location. So again, I don't know any more than that, but I do know that the chief called me to say specifically that he had not been drinking.
Right.
And I've been around Chief O'Dea in social situations. We have a Christmas party every year, a holiday party every year at our home for all the department heads. He and his wife come. I've been at retreats with him. I have occasionally seen him have a glass of wine or a drink, but I've never seen him have more than one.
Right.
So, like most police officers, I think he's fairly careful about that.
Right. Okay, well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. Maybe you could do me one more favor.
Sure.
I have left several messages. I just need to talk to one of the assistant chiefs. I know Chief O'Dea had said he had met with all the assistant chiefs on Monday morning and gave them a briefing about this. I just need to talk to one of them to say this is what he said.
Oh, okay.
And I've left messages with Chief Henderson, and I think I left a message with Bob Day's assistant. And I haven't heard back from anyone, and that's really the last thing on my list to do.
Okay, well, either probably Donna Henderson, who's the acting chief, or Mike Krebs would be the appropriate people. So I will get a hold of one or both of them and
that would be
ask them
super
to call
helpful.
you today. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just send them a note over this morning. I'm sure if you don't hear back from them today, let me know.
Okay, great. I appreciate your time, Mayor Hales.
You bet. Anything else you need, just let me know.
All right, take care.
And by the way, when your report is completed, how's it transmitted?
So typically what happens is, so when I'm done with my reports, those all get reviewed by the prosecutors in my office, and then they make a recommendation that goes to the Attorney General, and then she would make kind of the final decision on whether or not we're going to prosecute or what we would prosecute for. And so when, of course, there's massive, media wants this stuff, it would not get released until after that time. And of course, Chief O'Dea and the victim would both be notified what the outcome of the investigation is. And then after that, anyone can make public records requests, and those can go out. We do a lot more redaction than what Sheriff Ward did. So dates of births and phone numbers and all of that stuff would be redacted. And but if there is a need for us to hold off on redacting it or hold off on releasing it because of your guys' administrative and internal investigations, that may be a discussion that you can have with our Chief Counsel, Michael Slauson.
Okay, well, what's his last name?
It's Slauson. It's Slauson.
Okay.
And he's the one that would have direct contact with the Attorney General.
Yeah. Well, I don't need to rush the process or retard it, and nor do I need any sort of special place in the queue of when people receive the report. But I do want to receive a copy of the report as soon as that is permissible and practicable.
Sure.
And it can come from Michael to our city attorney.
Okay.
To Tracy Reeve under privilege, and therefore she can share it with me if that's the most prudent way to do it. But again, just as the police commissioner and as the employer, I need to see that report in full when it's complete.
Sure.
As well as whatever comes out of internal affairs and independent police review. I just need to see all those. I need to have all those reports on my desk before I make any decisions.
Typically, what would happen that may be more helpful to you than all of the reports is that if the criminal justice division decides to do a prosecution, then that gets forwarded to the Attorney General, and then the criminal prosecution process begins, and then the reports and stuff wouldn't be released. If it's declined, so they're not going to pursue any criminal charges, then they write up what we call a declination memorandum or a declination letter, and that would basically have some kind of just general facts about the case and the reason that we're not pursuing a criminal prosecution. And that would be kind of the information you would need right at hand. And then that can get released to you, or, someone could call you and say, hey, just to let you know, we're not going to prosecute this. And that way you can kind of start doing what you need to do on the employment side of it, and then we can get those reports sent up to Tracy. Could you spell Tracy's last name for me so I can put that in notes?
Yeah, it's Reeve, no S on the end, just Reeve.
Reeve, okay.
And Tracy without an E, Tracy, Tracy.
Okay.
So her email is just tracy.reeve@portlandoregon.gov.
Okay. I'm going to put a note in our case management system so they see that. So it gets kind of flagged that she would be the one that needs to see that for the personnel reasons for you guys. So, and I don't have any, like Constantine Severe keeps asking me, how long is this going to take? I really don't have any good idea of how long it would take. Our investigation is really close to getting wrapped up. Like I said, I just need to talk to the chiefs, and then I have a couple follow-up questions for some of the witnesses regarding the alcohol use and what was said to them about that. They're all very cautious about answering their phone because of calls from the press, so it's hard to get a hold of them.
Yeah.
I think the investigation side of it is probably going to be concluded here in the next 3 days.
Okay.
And then that will be kind of the time that the prosecutors can review all the information. They have been, being briefed and reviewing reports kind of the whole time. So I think they have an idea of, the situation and what they would see as whether or not to prosecute it. And then it's just going from here up to the AG's office. So
yeah, okay, I appreciate that understanding, because I didn't. Obviously, this is a completely anomalous situation for me. Even though I've been around government one way or another for 30 years, I've never been in this situation before.
Right.
And certainly hope to never be again. But,
yeah, it's not very fun. It's not very fun. I know the victim feels that it was just an accident. You know, these guys have been doing this trip for almost 30 years, and he said this was just a stupid accident, and I can't wait to go out next year with these guys. So clearly he doesn't feel that there was any intention, or that there was, or that he doesn't trust Larry to go out and do it. He just said it was an accident. And accidents happen, and we all know that. It's hard when you're a 30-year veteran of a police department to have a firearms accident.
Yep, sure is. Yeah, it is.
So,
yeah.
Okay, well, if there's
Thank
anything
you.
else, feel free to give me a call. If you don't hear anything and you're concerned about where the process is, just give me a call, and I'll try to light a fire under somebody and see where we're at.
Yeah, well, same with you. And again, I will email Donna Henderson
Okay.
and Cribs this morning and ask them to get a hold of you.
All right, great. Thanks so much, Mayor.
You bet. You take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And I'm going to stop the recording at 8:58 a.m. 8:58 a.m. 8:58 a.m.